y'all, welcome back. My name is Christina, and here on my channel I love to talk about the baby whisperer Tracy Hogg. This here is her book that I talk about all the time. It's The Baby Whisperer Solves All Your Problems. And today we're not going to be taking exactly from the book, but we're going to be taking all of her concepts from the book and using them toward explaining what sleep regressions are and how you can avoid them. Now, the interesting thing that I found about sleep regressions in Tracy Hogg's book is that she never actually talks about them. And this is because of a couple reasons, I think. Number one, they're a really popular thing to talk about online among parents right now. Like any parenting forum, video, anything that you see, somebody's going to be talking about sleep regressions, either that their baby is going through them or talking about their experience going through them. They're super popular. I think that maybe it's a bit of like a buzzword right now where you talk about a sleep regression, but that doesn't necessarily mean that sleep regressions are a new thing. They clearly have always happened with babies all the time. And so if you are dealing with a sleep regression with your baby, then you are definitely not alone, and lots of people have gone through these regressions with their own children. The only issue I see is that most people online who are dealing with a sleep regression don't actually help fix it. And so today I want to talk about the 4 reasons why you might be experiencing a sleep regression and exactly what you can do to help your baby go back to their usual sleep habits. So first, before we get into that, I kind of want to talk about the parenting mindset of sleep regressions. Right now, if you see sleep regressions online, you see people using them as an excuse for bad sleeping patterns. And usually it can be a baby who's been sleeping pretty well, who maybe's been doing like 8 to 10 hours a night, and then all of a sudden they're only doing 4 to 6 hours or something crazy like that. And the parents don't do anything about it. The concept basically is just like, oh, it's a normal, natural thing that happens, so just wait it out and let it pass. But if you are experiencing a sleep regression like that, then there is a cause. The regression itself is not the cause. Regression doesn't cause bad sleep. Bad sleep is actually what causes regression. And so there's lots of ways that you can fix the bad sleep habits that your baby has that's leading to the regression, so that you can help them have a healthy sleep habit, get back to even doing better at sleep than maybe they were before. There's lots of different sleep regressions that happen at every age. There's a 3 or 4 month regression, there's a 6 month regression, an 8 to 9 month regression, a 1 year regression, a 2 year regression. I've heard everything. You could even make up like a 13 month regression or something like that. I'm sure somebody's experienced it. But basically, people are experiencing sleep regressions all the time at any age, and it's due to multiple causes, but you do see those popular ones, like especially the 3 to 4 month sleep regression is like the biggest one. And that to me is an indication that your child is ready to be sleep trained. And with Tracy Hogg's method, if you haven't heard of it, she uses pick up, put down, and she suggests starting by 4 months. Somewhere between 3 and 4 months is usually appropriate for like a healthy baby. So this leads to our first cause of a sleep regression, which is schedule changes and your baby's development. So essentially at that 3 to 4 month mark, and I've talked about this in almost all of my sleep training videos, your baby's brain changes so much, and the way that they do sleep just totally changes. And so you're going to see a regression at that age because your baby's brain has developed a circadian rhythm. They can also self-soothe better. And so the methods that you might have been using to put them to sleep before are no longer going to work, and they're not going to work as well as they used to, because now your baby's actually old enough to take on the responsibility of sleep on themselves, essentially. So if you are interested in sleep training, if you have a 3 to 4 month old and you are experiencing a regression, I have lots of videos that I'll link up here at the top that talk about Tracy Hogg's pick up, put down method. I think it's the best method of sleep training. I highly recommend it. So go ahead and just leave the video and go watch those, because you should know about it as much as you can if you're interested. And then you see other, the other ones I listed, the major sleep regressions, like at 6 months is another big one. And that's a huge milestone, starting solids. Also around 7 months is when your baby should be dropping a feed. I didn't mention it before actually, but at 3 to 4 months, your baby also drops a feed and moves to a 4-hour feeding schedule. That's a huge one. So if they've been eating a lot during the night, they're like gonna get all wonky at this point, because they should not be eating during the night by 3 months if they're like a healthy, normal baby. By 4 months, they should be going every 4 hours during the day. So they're dropping a feed there and dropping a nap, plus they're able to be sleep trained. Then at 7 months, they drop another feed. 8 to 9 months, they drop another feed, and they drop a cat nap. So they're on a 2 nap, 3 feed schedule around 9 to 10 months-ish. And then, of course, turning 1 comes with a bunch of huge milestones there. By the time you get to 18 months, you're dealing with dropping another nap, and then so on and so forth. Obviously, if you don't have a baseline of good sleep habits at that point, when your child turns into a toddler and they begin to grow and get older, then you're just going to continue to see bad sleep habits and bad sleep patterns resurface. They're going to have good weeks, they're going to have bad weeks. And even with my 2 sleep trained children now, they're not totally perfect. There are some nights where they have bad nights. They, like, my toddler might have a bad dream, my baby might be a little hungry because she's going through a growth spurt, something like that. Or maybe they just had a really overstimulating day and they're having difficulty settling down for the night. It doesn't mean that your child's always going to be perfect, but if you aren't consistent with teaching sleep, then you're definitely going to see more of an up and down as your child grows older. And then that kind of leads into the second reason why you may be seeing a sleep regression happen, and that is that you're using sleep props. And this is definitely more common in like younger babies, obviously. When you haven't sleep trained, when your baby is not even old enough to sleep train, is usually when you start to implement a sleep prop, whether it's rocking to sleep, feeding to sleep, pacifiers, bouncing, going in the car to fall asleep, being worn to sleep. There's so many things that could be like sleep props. It could even be like with older kids, like with toddlers, I've heard stories of like children needing a glass of water in the middle of the night in order to sleep. Things like that, where your child needs them to fall asleep and needs them to stay asleep, and they will wake up if they don't have it, and they're depending on it fully for sleep. So if you are using sleep props like that and you are seeing sleep regressions happen, then you're just like totally confused, because you've been using like breastfeeding or pacifiers to always get your baby to sleep, and then all of a sudden they're not taking those things anymore and they're not getting any good sleep. And so you're just like, why can't you just do what you were doing before? And so a big thing is everything I listed before with schedule changes as your baby ages, especially if you are at one of those big schedule changing points, you're going to see sleep props like not work as well, because your baby is changing and growing and developing, and the things that worked for them a month ago might not work for them tonight, because sleep props aren't actually skills that your baby needs. Like, your baby shouldn't have those things, shouldn't be depending on them. They need to grow out of those things as they age and mature, because that's what's developmentally appropriate for them. And so if you are experiencing a regression, or if you have before, you could stay consistent with a sleep prop and keep offering the same thing, and then eventually you might see them go back to the thing that they know. So I'm not saying that sleep props just won't ever work. They do work, that's why we use them, right? They're very quick fixes. But if you have used one consistently and you're experiencing a regression where it's not working anymore, I would also take that as another sign that you should transition. You should take that as an opportunity to transition into sleep training and into teaching your child independent sleep skills. Especially if they are refusing a prop that you've been using, then that's the perfect time to be like, well, if you don't want this, then we're gonna start this new method, because the thing that's the best for your child is to stay consistent and to be dependable, so that your child knows what to expect when it comes to sleep. And then number 3, for a reason you may be seeing a sleep regression, is like developmental and growth milestones. And so when your child is developing physically, they're going to practice those skills in their bed. So when you get to rolling and sitting up and crawling and standing and walking and running even and talking, that's a big one not a lot of people talk about. All of those things are 100% going to affect their sleep. You could have a baby that was a really great napper before, and then now when you put them down for a nap, they just sit in their crib and talk to themselves for like an hour, and you're like, go to sleep. Like you're just so confused of why they would do that. Or maybe they're waking up in the middle of the night and doing something. And then they could also be like hurting themselves while they're doing physical things, or they could be standing in their crib and pulling up and then getting stuck and they need help laying back down. Same with sitting up and they need help laying back down. Things like that are going to interrupt their sleep, and those are not as confusing sleep regressions, especially if you are seeing a pattern of like, okay, my baby just rolled over on their stomach and they don't like sleeping that way, so I just have to go back and roll her back onto her back. That happened with my second daughter. When she started rolling, she would always roll onto her stomach and she hated it, but she couldn't roll onto her back for like a week or two. But she learned how to do it. And so the thing that you do to help with these developmental milestones is help them practice them during the day. So when my daughter was having trouble rolling in her sleep, I would literally give her so much floor time so she could practice rolling while she was awake, and it didn't take her very long, and so it stopped messing with her sleep. Now things like talking obviously are like an endless developing skill. Like my 2-year-old is still developing. She's going to develop her speech over the next couple years, and she talks to herself all the time in bed, and that's going to be something that I don't think will stop for a while. Especially now that my daughters are sharing a room together, they will talk to each other. They're not saying anything. There's no real communication going on, but when we put them down for bed, they do babble to each other for like 30 minutes before they fall asleep, which definitely gets in the way of their sleep. But they're not upset, they're happy, so I'm just gonna let them have that time together for themselves. I think it's really sweet. But it might be a concerning thing for you if you find that your child is waking up in the middle of the night and talking to themselves. You may be confused if you should go in or not, or if you've done pick up, put down, like continue to do that with them to help them go back to sleep. But really, that's just gonna happen. It's just like a natural thing that they do while they're practicing talking to themselves. If they're not upset, then you don't need to do anything. But if they did stand up in their crib and they are upset because they can't get back down, then yeah, obviously you need to go and help them. But maybe they stood in their crib and they're not upset. Then you can just ignore it until they need help, if they do need it. But yeah, just work on those skills while your child is awake, and then you will probably in less than a week see any difficulty with sleep fade away from those. And then the fourth thing that is going to cause a sleep regression is things like what's it called? Like a routine buster. So going on vacation and traveling and getting sick, or something major happening in your family. Even like if you as a parent are experiencing grief or loss or stress, that can affect your child even if they have absolutely no idea what's happening. So if there's been any major change, any milestone in your life that has occurred recently, and your child is not sleeping very well, and you've ruled out everything else that I've said, then this is usually the thing. And I would say that this is like, it's either very obvious that this is the problem or it's not very obvious. But obviously, like, yeah, if you were flying and you were in a different time zone and your child's having trouble sleeping, even like for like a whole week after you get back from vacation, you can assume that they're just adjusting. But if it's something less obvious, like maybe you are experiencing stress at work and you're bringing that home and you don't realize you're bringing it home, and your child's picking up on it and they're having a hard time sleeping because of that, that could be an issue as well. And so, depending on your child's age, of course, you would have to tackle that differently. If your child is at the point where they can understand conversational things, even if they can't really respond yet, then that's something that you can kind of vocalize with them and have them, like, you basically just want to get everything out in the open so that there's not any like confusion or fear or anxiety that maybe they're experiencing. But that they can feel more safe and comfortable, and that they're like processing these emotions that they're feeling. And then of course with younger children, just being more aware of your own emotions and trying to leave them at the door, not inviting them into the interactions that you have with your child, just like taking care of yourself as best if you can, maybe even having somebody help you with your child so that you can take some more time for yourself, things like that. And then of course with like the routine busters, schedule changes, blah, 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 travel, all of that, that should resolve on its own as long as you go back to a consistent routine as soon as you're in your own home. Same with sickness and teething, those things will get in the way. They all pass and it will get better as long as you stay consistent and you stick with your routine and you go back to providing them with that dependable and reliable routine and bedtime rhythm and daily life stuff that they're used to doing. So yeah, I think that basically just kind of summarizes everything that I know about sleep regressions. Even though Tracy doesn't mention it in her book, she does mention literally everything that I talked about, things that do affect your child's sleep. And so if you are interested in learning more, I recommend getting this book. It's like less than $12 on Amazon. It's really great. And then of course I have loads of other videos that you can check out where I break down her book chapter by chapter, and then I've been just kind of going through and picking out topics that I would hope are relevant to you all as you watch. Feel free to give this video a like, and if you have any questions or comments or concerns or anything that you want to add, please do so down below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. Yeah, and then don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated when more videos come out. Thanks for watching.